I almost hit someone the night I met Lucian. Not the kind of almost that stays in your head. The real kind. My hand already clenched tight around his collar, heart hammering like it was about to burst, and just one more second and I would have punched him square in the face, right in the middle of the dorm courtyard. Let go, Magnus. My friend's voice came from behind, tight with tension. But I didn't let go. The guy in front of me smiled. A nasty, smug smile. You think you're special or something? He drawled, voice dripping with mockery. Just some dumped gay guy. That line was the final straw. I tightened my grip. I don't remember what I was thinking in that moment. Maybe nothing at all. My head was just a storm of rage, humiliation, and a pain I couldn't even name. 3 weeks. Only 3 weeks since I'd been dumped. And now here I was, standing in the cold night, letting some random asshole rip that wound open like it was entertainment. I said let go. Another voice cut through. Not loud, not angry, but firm enough to make me freeze. I turned my head, and that was the first time I saw him. Lucian stood a few steps away, hands tucked into the pockets of his gray hoodie, hair slightly tousled by the wind. The yellow glow from the lamppost fell on him, making his eyes look darker than they would later. Not the bright blue I'd come to know, but something deep and unreadable. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the other guy. You're pushing it, Lucian said. The guy smirked. Who the hell are you? Doesn't matter. Then fuck off. Lucian let out a soft sigh, like he'd been through this exact situation too many times. Look, he said, voice still calm. You're drunk. He's drunk. This isn't the way to end the night. I'm not drunk, I snapped, even though I knew I was. Lucian glanced at me. Just a quick look, but it felt like he saw straight through me. Yeah, he said, a hint of dry sarcasm in his tone. Obviously. The guy barked out a loud laugh. See? Even your friend. He never finished the sentence, because Lucian had already taken one step forward. Not fast, not aggressive, but something in the way he moved shifted the whole atmosphere. You should leave, Lucian said, staring straight into the guy's eyes, before this gets worse. Silence stretched between us. I could hear the wind moving through the trees, my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The guy looked at Lucian, then at me, then clicked his tongue in annoyance. Fucking psychos, he muttered, yanking his shirt free from my grip. I don't have time for this shit. He turned and walked away. I stood there, hands still shaking, breathing hard. Everything had happened so fast I hadn't even processed it yet. You okay? Lucian asked. I let out a bitter laugh. Do I look okay? No. His blunt answer caught me off guard. I turned to look at him properly. This time I really looked. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't showing pity. He was just looking at me, like he was waiting for me to say something first. Thanks, I muttered, reluctant. Lucian shrugged. No problem. Another silence, but this one felt heavy, not like the quiet ones we'd share in the library later. This was the silence after a storm. Everything still scattered, nothing cleaned up yet. I didn't need your help, I said, even though I wasn't sure why I was saying it. Lucian nodded. Yeah. Just one word. No argument. No pushback. And somehow that annoyed me more. Then why did you step in? I asked. Lucian looked at me for a moment. Then he said, because you looked like you were about to do something you'd regret tomorrow. I swallowed hard. I wanted to argue, wanted to say I didn't care, but couldn't, because deep down I knew he was right. I exhaled sharply and rubbed my face with my hand. Fuck. Lucian didn't say anything. He just stood there, staying, not walking away like everyone else did when I started becoming too much. What year are you? He asked after a while. I frowned. What? Simple question. 3rd year. Yeah. And you? 2nd year. I nodded, even though I had no idea why the conversation had shifted like this. Magnus. Huh. My name. Lucian tilted his head slightly, like he was filing it away. Lucian. We didn't shake hands. There was no need. Whatever was happening between us right then wasn't polite small talk. It was a strange kind of connection born from something ugly. I was heading somewhere, Lucian said. Grabbing coffee. You can come if you want. I should have said no. I didn't know him. I didn't like talking. And I was definitely not in the mood to sit with a stranger. But I looked around. The dorm courtyard was emptying out. The wind felt colder. And for the first time that night I realized I didn't want to be alone. Okay, I said. Lucian nodded like he'd already known I would. Let's go. We started walking, side by side, not touching, not saying much. But strangely, I felt like I had just been pulled back from something terrible, and I had no idea that the person who had dragged me out of that moment would become the one who always showed up exactly when I needed him in my life. We walked in silence for almost 10 minutes. The campus at night looked completely different. No loud groups of students, no music blasting from the dorms. Just the wind and long stretches of yellow lamplight on empty paths. I shoved my hands into my jacket pockets and kept my head down. Lucian walked beside me, neither faster nor slower. Just right. You get into fights a lot? He asked. I scoffed. No. Doesn't look like your first time. I was just pissed. Lucian nodded, as if that explained everything. You should pick someone more worth getting pissed at. I glanced at him. What do you mean? I mean, he gave a small shrug. That guy wasn't worth losing control over. I stayed quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew he was right. We stopped in front of a small 24-hour cafe near the campus gate. The warm light inside was the complete opposite of the cold outside. The bell above the door chimed as we walked in. The smell of coffee, warm milk, and pastries wrapped around us. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. What do you want? Lucian asked. Anything. That's not an answer. I frowned. Latte. Yeah. Lucian ordered 2 without asking anything else. He paid before I could protest. I can pay for myself, I said. Next time. I didn't say there'd be a next time. Lucian looked at me, a short look, but it made me pause. Yeah, he said. Up to you. We sat at a corner table by the window. Outside, the wind kept blowing, but inside it was warm. I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, letting the heat seep into my palms. Neither of us spoke for the first few minutes, and for the first time in days I didn't feel the need to fill the silence. What's your major? Lucian asked. Architecture. Makes sense. I raised an eyebrow. What makes sense? The way you look at things. How do I look at things? Lucian thought for a second, like everything could fall apart at any moment. I gave a small smile. Sounds pretty negative. No, he shook his head. Just realistic. I didn't reply, because that line hit exactly the place I always tried to avoid. And you? I asked, changing the subject. Fine arts. Ah. Yeah. You draw a lot? Almost every day. I nodded, remembering how he had stood in the courtyard earlier. Calm, in control, like everything was within reach. Nothing like me. Not even close. Do you draw me too? I blurted out. Lucian looked at me. Maybe. I don't give permission. You just did. When? Lucian took a sip of coffee, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. When you decided to come with me. I opened my mouth to argue, but I couldn't find a reason. You're really weird, I muttered. Thanks. I wasn't complimenting you. I know. Another silence. But this time I was starting to get used to it. You were right, I said after a while. Lucian looked up. About what? Earlier. Yeah. I would have regretted hitting him. Lucian didn't answer immediately. He just gave a small nod. But I still wanted to, I continued. Yeah. You're not going to lecture me or anything? Lucian looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, Not every feeling you have is wrong. I paused. Anger isn't the problem, he went on. It's how you handle it that is. I stared down at my coffee. I'm not good at that. I know. What do you know? Because I'm the same. I looked up. For the first time, Lucian's voice wasn't completely steady. It was quieter, softer, like he had just accidentally shown a piece of himself he usually kept hidden. I started. Yeah. Lucian cut in before I could finish. I have. No extra details. No explanation needed. But I understood. Somehow I understood. We fell quiet again. But this time the silence didn't feel strange. You got dumped? Lucian asked. I let out a laugh with no humor in it. Is it that obvious? Pretty obvious. Yeah. How long? 3 weeks. Lucian nodded. Still hurts. I gripped the coffee cup tighter. Yeah. Do you still love him? The question hit me right in the chest. I didn't answer right away, because if I said yes, it would be pathetic. If I said no, it would be a lie. I don't know, I finally said. Lucian didn't push. He just nodded. That's normal. I hate feeling like this, I admitted, voice dropping. Yeah. I hate that I still think about him. Yeah. I hate that he can just keep living like nothing happened. Lucian looked at me. This time his eyes weren't neutral. They were gentler. You think you're the only one who's hurting? He asked. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, Lucian set his cup down. Just because someone looks fine doesn't mean they actually are. I stayed quiet. But that doesn't change the fact that you're in pain, he added. I exhaled and leaned back in my chair. You talk like a self-help book. Lucian gave a soft laugh. Sorry. Don't apologize. Yeah. Another silence. But this one didn't feel heavy. It felt comfortable. Strange. A stranger. A strange night. A conversation I would normally have avoided at all costs. And yet here I was. Sitting here, saying things I hadn't even admitted to myself yet. Magnus. Huh. You don't have to be okay right now. I looked at him. My heart skipped. Not because the words were special, but because of how he said them. Genuine. No pressure. No pity. Just acceptance. Yeah, I said quietly. We stayed a little longer. Not talking much. But it was enough. When we left the cafe, it was almost 2 a.m. The air was colder, but I didn't feel as bad as before. We stood outside the door, facing each other. Thanks for tonight, I said. Lucian shrugged. No problem. A pause. Will I see you again? I asked before I could stop myself. Lucian looked at me. His eyes were hard to read. Maybe, he said. Then he turned and walked away. I stood there watching him go. I didn't call after him. I didn't ask for more. But something inside me whispered. This wasn't the last time. And I had no idea that the next time Lucian appeared would be exactly when I thought I was finally starting to be okay again. I didn't see Lucian again for the next 5 days. 5 days, not long, but long enough for me to wonder if that night had just been a random coincidence. A strange moment. A stranger. And then it was over. I went back to normal life. Classes, assignments, presentations I barely remembered giving. I started sleeping a little more. Eating a little better. I still thought about my ex, but it wasn't the suffocating kind anymore. I started telling myself I was getting better, that everything would pass. And right at that moment, everything fell apart again. It was Friday. I was in the architecture studio, where we usually stayed up late finishing projects. The big room with high ceilings and cold white lights shining on half-finished models. I was editing the final drawing when my phone vibrated. His name lit up the screen. I stared at it, heart racing. I hadn't heard from him in 3 weeks. And now, he was calling. I should have ignored it. I knew that, but my finger moved before my brain could stop it. Hello? Magnus. Just my name. His voice, so familiar it hurt. What do you want? I asked, trying to sound normal. You free? I want to talk. I gave a faint, joyless smile. 3 weeks later and now you want to talk? Yeah, I know. I'm busy. I cut him off. Silence for a few seconds. Just 10 minutes. Please. I closed my eyes. Damn it. I hated how easily he still affected me. Where? I heard myself ask. We met in front of the library. The same place where, just days earlier, I had sat alone thinking I never wanted to see him again. How ironic. He stood there, hands in his coat pockets, looking exactly the same. Maybe that was what annoyed me most. Everything inside me had changed. He hadn't. You look better, he said. I smiled coldly. You don't get to comment on that. He sighed. I'm sorry. Don't, I said immediately. Don't start with that. You just what? I snapped. Dumped me. Disappeared for 3 weeks. Then came back saying sorry like everything's supposed to be fine? He stayed silent. And that made me angrier. I didn't come here to fight, he said quietly. Then why did you come? He looked at me. That look. I once thought I'd never forget it. I miss you. My chest tightened. Just one sentence. And everything I'd tried to rebuild over the past days started to crack. Don't, I said, voice low. I know I don't have the right, he continued. But I can't pretend you don't matter. Then why did you leave me? Silence again. I was scared, he finally said. I laughed. Sounds familiar. I'm serious, Magnus. Yeah, everyone's serious when they hurt someone. He stepped closer. I didn't move back. I don't want to lose you, he said. But you already did. A long silence. Wind blew between us. Can we try again? He asked. That question was exactly what I had waited 3 weeks to hear. What I had imagined 100 times. What I thought would make me say yes immediately. But I stood there, silent, not because I didn't want to, but because something had changed. I remembered that night, the dorm courtyard, the rage, and a calm voice stepping in. You looked like you were about to do something you'd regret tomorrow. I swallowed. I don't know, I said. He looked surprised. You don't know? Yeah. Magnus. I don't know, I repeated, firmer this time. I'm not sure about anything anymore. He was quiet. I could see the disappointment in his eyes. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to fix it. I need time, I said. Okay. He nodded slowly. I understand. We stood there a few more seconds. Neither of us spoke. Take care of yourself, he said before turning away. I didn't reply. I just watched him leave. Again. But this time, I didn't run after him. I don't know how long I stood there. I only know that when I finally turned around, I didn't want to go back to the dorm. So I walked. Aimlessly. Just walked. Cold wind. Hands going numb. But my head felt strangely clear. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just felt empty. I guess the night didn't go the way you hoped. That voice made me stop dead. Heart pounding. I turned. Lucian was standing there, leaning against a lamppost, arms crossed over his chest, like he'd been waiting, like he already knew. "Are you following me?" I asked, half joking, half serious. Lucian shrugged. "No, I just pass by here a lot." "Always at the perfect time, huh?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me. "Seems that way." I let out a tired laugh. "You heard everything?" "Enough." I sighed and ran a hand through my hair. "So what do you think?" Lucian stepped closer. "I think," he said slowly, "you didn't say yes." I looked at him. "Yep. That's progress." I smiled thinly. "I'm not sure." Lucian tilted his head. "You still want to go back to him?" That question, the second time that night, hit me hard. I opened my mouth, then closed it. "I don't know," I said, quieter this time. Lucian nodded. "Okay." "Okay what?" "Not knowing is okay." I looked at him. Once again, he wasn't trying to force me to have an answer. He wasn't giving me one either. He was just letting me sit in my own uncertainty. "You want to go somewhere?" Lucian asked. I breathed out, looked up at the dark sky, then back at him. "Yeah." And so, for the second time, I walked with Lucian, right when I thought I was finally starting to be okay again. "Where are we going?" I asked as we started walking. Lucian didn't answer right away. He just shrugged and turned onto a quiet path behind the dorms. Almost no one around. Only a few weak yellow lights and the sound of dry leaves crunching under our feet. "I know a spot," he said. "Sounds sketchy." "Yeah, you can turn back if you want." I snorted. "I've already followed you twice." Lucian glanced at me. "And you're still alive." "Not completely sure about that." He gave a soft laugh. We kept walking, not fast, but this time the space between us felt a little smaller. I noticed it when our hands almost brushed a few times. Neither of us said anything. Neither of us pulled away. The place Lucian took me to was an old set of stairs behind the art building. A forgotten corner. Some graffiti on the wall, a flickering lamp, and a view of the distant soccer field where the lights were still on. "I come here when I need quiet," Lucian said. "I thought you were always quiet." "Not always." We sat down, far enough not to touch, close enough that I could feel his warmth in the cold night. "I hate this," I said, breaking the silence. "What?" "The way he just came back like that." Lucian nodded. "Yeah." "Like," I clenched my fist, "like I was just an option." He didn't answer immediately. "I don't think you are," Lucian said after a moment. "I knew you'd say that." "Not to comfort you." "Then why?" Lucian turned to look at me. His eyes were serious. "To remind you that you get to choose." I paused. "Choose what?" "Who's worth staying for?" I gave a small laugh. "Sounds like a motivational speech." "Maybe. But life isn't that simple." "I know. Feelings aren't that simple." "Yeah." "So why do you talk like it is?" Lucian was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "Because if I don't say it, you'll forget." That line left me speechless. The wind blew harder. I pulled my collar up. Lucian took off his hoodie and tossed it to me. "Put it on." "I don't need." "Put it on." I looked at him. No smile. No joke. Just a simple request. I took it. The hoodie was still warm. Smelled faintly nice. Not cologne. Just a comfortable, familiar scent. Like wood and paper. "I'll give it back," I said. "No rush." I put it on. And right away I felt better. Not just warmer, but safer. We sat there a while longer. Not talking. Just looking out at the distant soccer field. "I went back to an ex once," Lucian said suddenly. I turned to him, and it didn't end well. How many times? 3. I laughed. You serious? Yeah. And what did you learn? Lucian shrugged. That feelings don't disappear just because you want them to. Sounds familiar. But that doesn't mean you have to go back. I looked down at my hands. I'm scared, I admitted. Yeah. Scared that if I say no, I'll lose him forever. Lucian didn't answer right away. He stared straight ahead. And if you say yes? He asked. I stayed silent. I might lose myself too, I said quietly. Lucian nodded. That's why it's hard. Silence. But this time it didn't feel heavy. It just felt honest. Why are you helping me? I asked. Lucian frowned slightly. What do you mean? We don't even know each other. We do now. You know how messed up I am. Yeah. So why are you still here? Lucian thought for a moment. Then he said, because I don't think you should have to go through it all alone. My heart skipped again. I don't need saving, I said, but my voice came out weaker than I wanted. Lucian nodded. I'm not trying to save you. Then what are you doing? He looked at me. This time his eyes didn't dodge. Just being here. Just being here. It sounded so simple, but no one had ever done that for me before. Not like this. No expectations. No pressure. No conditions. Just there. I don't remember the exact moment everything changed. Maybe when our shoulders brushed. Or when I didn't pull away. Or when Lucian didn't either. It was just the distance between us slowly disappeared. Neither of us said anything about it. But we both felt it. I turned to look at him. Lucian was already looking at me. Very close. Too close. I could see every detail, his features, his eyes, the way he breathed. The air felt different. Slower. I shouldn't. I started. Yeah, Lucian said softly. But he didn't move back. Neither did I. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then I turned away. Exhaled hard. We shouldn't do this, I said. Yeah. At least not right now. Yeah. I smiled faintly without any real humor. You always agree with me? Lucian shook his head lightly. No. Then why aren't you arguing? He looked at me. A strange look. Because this time you're right. I didn't know how to feel. Relieved? Disappointed? Maybe both. We sat a little longer. Not as close as before. But not far either. A safe distance. I should head back, I said finally. Yeah. We stood up. I took off the hoodie and held it out to him. He didn't take it right away. Keep it, he said. I'll return it later. No problem. I looked at him. Thanks. Lucian nodded. We stood there for a few seconds. Neither of us moved first. Then, bye, Magnus. Yeah, bye, Lucian. I turned and walked away, heart still racing, mind still a mess. But one thing I was sure of. I was stepping into something dangerous, not because it was wrong, but because it had come at exactly the right time.